I want to welcome you to this very special Lunch and Learn. This is where we're going to be listening to student voices. And we have some students here who want to be able to share with you what they love about their instructors. So some really positive experiences that they've had. They're going to talk about strategies or tools that their instructors have used. And the students are also going to talk about the way that their instructors made them feel just through personal and professional connections. And today we're focusing on the positive things that have happened at Delaware Tech, and that's to help us discover patterns to determine if there are elements that we can engage in at scale, so that when the students are sharing things that have gone really well for them, so that other instructors can learn about those things and implement those in their classrooms also. And additionally, we've also at CCIT been able to hear from students in a Student Voices survey. So during this session, we'll also talk about some of the responses that we received in that anonymous survey. And then the really exciting part also is that there will be 3 Lunch and Learn series after this one that will focus on the feedback that we've received from the students, and we'll talk about the information gathered from that survey. And in those 3 follow-up sessions, we'll really dive into tools or strategies that they mentioned today or in that survey. So let's begin with some introductions. I'm Laura Thompson, Learning Strategies Coordinator at Delaware Tech, and this is Adrienne Peterson, Instructional Designer, and we're your hosts for today's Lunch and Learn. The Student Voices project came to light because in our roles as instructors and professional development specialists, we often talk about and teach strategies, tools, and instruction that reaches students according to design or implementation in education. And the goal of the Student Voices series is to capture those student responses to those strategies so that we can understand the student experience. And another goal is determine some of our most successful strategies so that we can implement those across courses. After this Lunch and Learn student panel session, we'll follow up with a series of sessions that investigate the strategies that are brought up today, and then we're shared in the student survey. And we want to welcome students to our panel today. We have Matthew Ward, Alexis Moore, and Kendra Gainey. So we're going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. Matthew, would you like to start?
Yeah. So my name is Matthew Ward. This is my second semester at Delaware Tech. I'm taking the electrical engineering transfer option to University of Delaware from here. And I'm the current president of the Student Government Association at the Stanton campus.
Thank you. Alexis, would you like to go next?
Sure, why not? My name is Alexis Moore. This is my, I'm just going to say 5th semester, maybe. At Del Tech, I'm an elementary education major. I also am a SGA member at the Wilmington campus. I also am involved in the education club as well as Spectrum United. So a lot of hats.
Excellent. And we also have Kendra Gainey. Would you like to be able to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Kendra Gainey. I am a student of entrepreneurship in the Dover campus, and I'm in my 3rd semester, starting my 3rd semester, full-time mom, part-time student.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Adrienne, take it away.
All right, students, time for the first question. Palm sweating, let's go. So tell about a time that an instructor connected with you. What strategy or tools did they use? How did that connection affect your learning in the course? So this is all about connections, how your instructor connected with you as a student and the means by which that connection happened.
I'll just start. So I think one of the most significant times a instructor connected with me was in my Calculus 1 course, where my professor would actually send out weekly updates like regarding your progress and how you're doing in the class. And I think that connection significantly motivated me. It made me feel as though like my professor was really there, like making sure that I was doing okay and that she was there to help me succeed. especially since the calculus course was totally online, it was nice to hear from my professor that I didn't see because it was just mostly pre-recorded lectures. Also, after a test and exam, my professor would also email me and give me a feedback on my performance on the test, and would always reach out if I need extra help. And it was it's very highly encouraging. It actually made me much more willing to reach out for the help when I needed it.
I guess I can follow up with that. Sorry, did you want to go, Kendra?
No, I thought we would go in order. Fine.
It's whatever. But I have to agree with Matthew. Is I've been actually very, very lucky since I've been at Deltec. I've had several instances, excuse me, where teachers have connected with me. I had a teacher my very first semester who when I'm in class, it's usually the same behavior, day after day after day after day after day. I try not to be different. So when he noticed that something was a little off, he asked me to stay back, and basically he just said, I don't know. I don't know what happened to you. Like, is everything okay? Like, this isn't you. You sit in the corner and you're quiet. That's not like you. So having those connections with the teachers, and they see you as a person, and they actually pay attention to how you act and what you do, has, like Matthew had said, it's encouraging. You want to do better because they see you, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, Alexis, and I will add on to that my accounting teacher for me, Mrs. Manship, this last semester, because unfortunately accounting was it was my second go around taking the class, the only class that I've had to take twice since I've been in Deltec. So I had a lot of anxiety, and I just really was worried whether or not it was going to be a repeat again. And right from the beginning, not just me, but I think the whole entire class, Mrs. Manship, from the beginning of us being able to come online early, and it being an online class and not an in-person class, added to the stress. But with her, she took time immediately to know us individually. And she took time to let us know that she was there to get us not just through the course, but to understand the material so that we can apply the material and, finish well. And so it was her direct willingness, to avail herself that made the connection for me.
That's great. Thank you. Just to let everyone here know, you have questions that you would like to ask the students related to the questions that we're asking, follow-up questions, things like that, feel free to type those in the chat. Laura and I are keeping an eye on the chat. One thing, obviously, I think that stood out to us from your responses was the importance of being known, right? This concept that you were an individual, that you as a student had a personality, as Alexis said, right? And that personality shines through and is noticed. And when you need something, your instructor is there to provide that support for you. I'm curious, is that something that you expected to get when you came to Deltec, or is that something that was a pleasant surprise for you once you got here?
I would say it probably was expected because, even though you're on a campus, me being a late learner or an adult learner, coming onto the Georgetown campus, I had high expectations that you would, because you want to connect and you want to be able to blossom. And I think the expectation was met. The expectation was met in different ways, through not just instruction through the instructors, but through some administrators too. And then there, it was also the student aspect of it, connecting, with students throughout, different classes. So I think it was an expectation that was met.
I think I kind of agree but disagree. So, and what I mean by that is I am also an older student. I'm 29 years old. This is my second time around going to college. And so coming into community college, if you come in prepared, you know that it's more beneficial to go to a community college first because it's a smaller campus. You're not one in a million. So you get that one-on-one with the teacher. What I have to disagree with is I don't think I expected the magnitude of how much they were going to connect with me and how much the teachers, yes, they're there to teach us, in their classes, but I wasn't expecting them to see me as a person with, health issues and just different things going on and being there even outside the classroom, if I'm making sense. So I've had the pleasure of not only having that connection inside the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. They are very supportive. So
I concur.
I can say for me, going in the like whether or not, regardless if it was community college or normal college, I was definitely expecting less of like a connection with like my professors. Like I figured it'd be more of like a lecture environment where you just kind of sit and listen. But I was very surprised coming into Del Tech, like especially with things like student hours where you can go get one-on-one lecture time if you need it with the professor. I found that very shocking and I'm grateful for that. It's a very good tool.
I'm curious, what role, if any, does individualized feedback, say on assignments or quizzes or things like that, that either comes through in the form of email or inside of D2L, inside of the learning management system? How does that affect your feeling of connection to the class and to the instructor and their knowledge of your progress as you're moving through the course? What role, basically what role does D2L play in that, and what things have been beneficial that you've seen inside of D2L that facilitate that feeling? And this is free for all. You can go any order, so don't have to stick backwards and frontwards and sideways. You can go whichever order.
I think D2L is totally necessary because most instructors give you instant feedback. And what you want to be able to do is see where you are in the work and how you are progressing. And that instant feedback, lets you know whether or not you're on, if you're on mark, if you're on target. So for me, someone help me, please.
D2L. We got you. We know what you're doing.
D2L. It is necessary because then I don't necessarily have to have a one-on-one with the instructor. I don't necessarily have to take time to set aside to meet if it's not necessary. If it's feedback given, it says that you're on target, or you could do this, or I like this but that. Then I know as I'm starting my next assignment, how to drive. And so for me, I like the immediate response. Most instructors give you the immediate feedback.
Okay. So feedback, I think, is a very integral part of knowing how you're doing in the class, especially when it's on heavy assignments, like tests and essays and things like that. To get feedback from professors on how you're doing and ways you can improve and what you need to study. Like I know in my my chemistry class, a teacher would always recommend new things for me to study, like what if I performed poorly on a part of the test. And I think it's very helpful for you as a student.
Yeah, I live for D2L.
I have to agree with both Kendra and Matthew. Having the responses from your teachers are good. But I also like that D2L is a portal where you can see all of your work throughout the semester. Because and I'll share a little story. Last semester, I was taking psychology, and I was just like, I've taken psychology in high school. It shouldn't be that bad. I didn't think there would be that much of a problem. I did not do well. Did not do well. And it was very hard for me to figure out why. I would take a test and I'd fail it. And then I'd take a test and then I'd fail it. And then I'd take a test and I'd fail it. And having all of those tests in one portal where you can schedule a one-on-one with your teacher, and they can look at all of it all at once and say, well, this is the pattern that I'm seeing with you when you're taking your test. So let's do it this way to see if it changes. Like, I think that's a really good feature that D2L provides.
Excellent. And it's really great to listen to you all talk about this. And for instance, for some of the survey results, it reinforces what the three of you have said today also. On the survey, for instance, we had one response that talked about the instructor striking an appropriate balance between the personal and the professional, and that helped break down that stranger wall to help the student feel more comfortable and help the student feel more comfortable reaching out with questions. So that resonated exactly with what Matthew said at the very beginning, that when there's that connection between the instructor and the student, then students feel like it's okay to ask questions. They feel more comfortable doing it. Some also said that they really appreciated recordings of lectures because they had the opportunity to go back and review the material again if they needed it. So that was another strategy that instructors provided. Some students echoed again the opportunity when Matthew was mentioning student hours, or some instructors offer tutoring sessions that are based on particularly student needs. So they're not just saying, here's one, they listen to what the students need, and then they provide those tutoring sessions directly based on what the students have expressed they need. And even helping, some students point out, even when their instructors just help them with some learning strategies. So recognizing, how do I highlight? Maybe they never really were taught in high school how to highlight. How do you decide what's important? And how do you decide how to highlight that information? And even learning that strategic highlighting can really help to get the information. It's interesting that we can see even some of those kind of old school techniques, that we're just helping people, students recognize what they need. And another one that really came out of the survey too, and I think that the three of you would agree with this too, as students pointed out, when the instructors could connect the content in the class to the real world and help them recognize how they were going to use that in their projected path of career, or how it could apply to their current life, that students really appreciated that. And one other thing that I thought was really cute and fun was when they mentioned teachers who used images, or that maybe they drew pictures, maybe they were able to put some pictures up. They used the whiteboard in Zoom a lot, so they were drawing pictures, or they came up with poems and songs to help students learn things like anatomy terms, or help them learn things that they needed to be able to remember. So those were kind of some fun, some old school things that we've talked about before, coming all the way up into, for instance, having an LMS like D2L that helps instructors respond with feedback right away. And that's kind of a really good segue into our next question, because the next question is about really thinking about how instructors help us when we struggle. And we've talked about that a little bit already. Before we start that, I did want to ask from any of the people who are out there, do you have any questions that you want to ask the students right now, or are you holding them?
I placed mine in the chat. I don't really think you guys addressed it.
Lisa, is that you?
Yep.
I see in the chat, you said, I think it's great that they're connections, but she asked that you speak more about the learning management system so that we understand what works best as to how that is set up for learning. And you guys can address that a little bit more too, because you did talk about D2L using it for feedback. Maybe you can talk about the types of feedback you've gotten in D2L, or if there's other ways. And then Lisa, I'm going to reassure you too, that we're going to have another student panel in
Okay.
4 sessions, and that one's going to focus specifically on D2L.
Yeah, because I'm not really looking for the feedback. I'm looking for what the setup, because what I'm hearing from students is, you know, they might go to one DTL and it's set up one way and then another. So I'm kind of wanting to know generally what their interactions are with that as far as us setting it up for their learning.
Like the organization of it.
That's what I'm looking for. Yep.
Excellent, excellent. And it's so good that you're bringing that up, because in the survey and in the responses, students, when they talked about the strengths of D2L, organization was something that was repeated again and again and again and again. Does anyone, Matthew, Alexis, or Kendra, did you want to speak to that briefly?
Yeah, I could. So usually how my classes, it kind of really depends on the class and like what the content is. So I know for my calculus class, the way it was set up really made sense because, you know, we learn in chapters. So basically everything I need to do was in a checklist, and there's a schedule that was right next to the checklist. And you basically said, these 3 parts are due, like section 6.1 was due by a certain time. And then as you complete them, you check off the checklist, and then that's how you know that you need to do everything you need to do up to that point. So I think it would really depend on the content of the class and what you're teaching. Like I know, you know, for an ELA class, it'd probably be different. It'd be segments. But either way, I think organizing it into like readable chunks of and knowing what is due at a specific time and what is used for what is really helpful.
Yeah, when they break the assignments down, of course, some instructors do it better than other instructors do it. But having the course broke down, you know, week by week with the content that is due, you know, for that week is very helpful. Having it easily accessible. Some instructors, you have to click, 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 click to find what you're looking for. And sometimes it's buried, you know, and you have to search it out. Others, they have it like it's in that week, you click on it, you go through it, and everything you need to read and review the videos, whether it's the reading material, whether it's the exercise, or, you know, the detail of the material. So, I mean, it's great. And like I said, some do it better than others, but having it not so hid for me would be a key.
I'd have to agree. Having it organized is very important. So I've actually had different ways. I know, like for right now, I am participating in a study away course, which you don't really have daily classes for that. So you're just like, okay, so it's half online and we're meeting, it's half on your own, and then you travel, and it can get a little confusing of like, what am I supposed to be doing? What is due? What is not due? What do I have to prepare for? So one of the things I really enjoyed was my instructor, actually, one of her tabs is what to do before class. Wonderful thing to see, because if you just put like warm-ups or you put chapter 1, sometimes it's not very clear that I have to do it before class. There's no questions asked. You do this before class, it's to be done before class. Then you have each of the classes, which she does, because there's only about 5 classes. So what are we doing first class? It's all there. Second class, all there. The itinerary, all there. So I liked that. On the flip side, I've also had where teachers will have units. Their units will be split up. I've enjoyed that. For some reason, I don't particularly like when they split it up by class, unless it's like a hybrid class like I was talking about, because that could get a little confusing, I think. But putting it in chunks that make sense, chapter 1 or unit 1, or even if you put all discussion boards, all tests, all quizzes, things like that, that's all helpful. It just, like both Matthew and Kendra has said, it just depends on which class you're taking and what's involved.
Thank you. And Lisa, I see that you wrote thank you in the chat. So hopefully we addressed some of your thoughts, and we will talk about that even more in our next student panel, which will be in 4 sessions. Okay, then I have one for you. Are you ready? Okay, so this is the other question that we had. To tell about a time that an instructor helped you understand a difficult topic. And if you can think about the strategies or the tools that they use that really helped you understand the topic better.
Good old accounting for me. I guess some of the processes were getting jumbled in my head and stuff. And so what Mrs. Manship would do, we would do Kahoot. And that, did 2 things that, it put you in competition, which, you want to win, but it made learning fun. And then it gave you, it gave you, a little more, a little more confidence, so we did that, and that was something that we could do in class, and it was something we could do on our own. That was one of the learning strategies that helped me. I guess it was because it was fun, so Kahoot was my lifesaver.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question so I'm not like all out in left field? Can you repeat it again?
Absolutely. So the question was basically really trying to think about a time that you struggled in class and what the instructor did to try to help you grasp a difficult topic better.
So, sorry, I was just trying to organize my thoughts. One of the biggest things for me is I am not a math person, not at all. And yet I think I fooled a lot of people because it was great. I mean, I had, being an elementary education major, I had to take math for teachers 1 through 3. And I have 2 instances. One is the first one where we were actually learning, we learned like reading Egyptian math and Mayan math and things like that. And it can be very frustrating to remember all of it. So the teacher that I had encouraged us to use our own imagination. Like, we were just out of it one day, I think, and there's this like this little symbol, and it looks like a whale, but it looks like a shoe, and it looks like 5 different things. So they just encouraged us to use our own imagination. We ended up naming it Bob. That's what we knew it as, is the whale named Bob. And just being able to express your own imagination and make the material your own. Another thing, actually, I'm not going to call anybody out, but I did see this teacher actually here. One of the things in Math for Teachers 3 that I enjoyed is we're learning material, and then we have to teach it back to the class. And being with it virtual because of the pandemic, I think that makes it a little bit harder, because you're just like, how am I supposed to teach this to like, I don't even know how my own teachers do this. And it allowed me once again to use my imagination and say, what would I do to make sure I understood it? Like, what makes me understand this material so I can help somebody else understand the material? Being forced to use those types of skills in your brain, it helps. It just helps because you're making it your own. I hope I made sense with that.
Okay, so for me, it was more of a like a one-on-one kind of scenario where I was taking my intro to electrical engineering course, and my instructor, I was dealing with this concept of like voltage drops, and I was confused on the subject, but my professor actually arranged like in-person time that I could come in and he could explain it to me visually, which was tremendously helpful. We had we had circuit boards, then we had a whiteboard, and actually drawing everything out, and then he let me like work out the concept by myself, and then he would kind of like smooth out any road bumps I had on the way. So when I was challenged or like I was confused, then he would explain it to me, and then I would keep on working it out by myself. So I think that really helped. Was me, like, I was really figuring it out by myself. He was just guiding me along the way, which was, I think that was really invaluable. It was very nice.
Yeah, that is sometimes it get tricky that way, where where you're actually working it out, and they're there just to smooth it out. And like Mrs. Manship, she would have us talk it through, like, and you try to get quiet, and she'd be like, "Are you thinking?" And you're like, so you'd had to think out that process, and so that was very helpful.
I have actually something to follow up with what Matthew said. On the other side of the spectrum, I think it's just as important for a teacher to leave a student alone sometimes. I am somebody who has always showed good English skills. I've never gotten lower than a B on an English paper, not trying to gloat, but it's true. And so for me, especially when it comes to English, if I have somebody literally over my shoulder nitpicking everything that I do, I'm going to get more and more and more and more confused, to the point where I just throw my hands up in the air and I'm like, all right, I'm done. I can't do this. But if you say, you think you can't do it, but look at all the things you've just done. So you have the capability to do that. Just go over there, really think, and just start writing. So I always think that sometimes the best thing a teacher can do, especially for a student who is usually good at a subject, but their confidence is not very good, is to just reassure them that they are much smarter than what they let themselves believe, and then stick them in a corner and leave them alone. That has worked for me.
I mean, that's why we're here. We're here to blossom. Our instructors are our guides. Our instructors, are, for me, is to give the information, make it relatable, make it current, and then give it to the students so that we can then run with it. That is, I believe, the instructor's job, and handhold, when necessary.
Excellent. Well, along the lines of what you're saying, also, we had some information from the survey where some students had responded that instructors had created videos for assignments, for instance, where they explained the expectations, they explained the instructions for the assignments, and they made it for each one. And the students responded that it was great to hear the guidelines verbally, and they could hear, and sometimes the teachers went into greater depth of explanation in those videos than maybe if they had written instructions. Do you, if any of you, have comments about about instructor use of video to help support their instruction?
It's fantastic. It's a fantastic tool, and it, when utilized, it really does give the student what they need to run. You not only get the visual, you see what the work detail is, you see what is expected, but then you hear, how they expect it, how they want it, and then you can start to surmise how you will put the work together. So for me, I love it when they give detail, because then that makes things more clear for me.
And we do have a couple of questions that I can see in the chat. Are you ready for those? Okay. So, and this one, and we have one in particular, Alexis. When the instructor encouraged you to be creative, did you work with your classmates in a discussion board? Was it in a Zoom session? Where did you find, or how was that creativity encouraged?
So It varies, but I will tell one instance. Again, Math for Teachers 3. One of our first projects was a group project, and we actually had to teach. I think it was area and perimeter of, like, we were given a shape and we had to teach area, perimeter, and whatnot to the class within the group, and we had to teach it through Zoom. And what I mean by like creativity, this makes me laugh. One of the things that I had come up with is finding an object that looked like the shape within your house to give a visual representation of the shape that we were learning about. And the teacher allowing me to be that creative, to use that as a teaching method, made me feel more connected into my own learning, because I was understanding what I was saying because I was also seeing it, if that makes sense. Another way they encourage is, so one of my English classes, I took an honors class, and I was really scared about it because I'd never taken an honors class. And I'm like, this is not going to go well. I'm not going to do well. This is just not me. And the teacher allowed us to write papers that we cared about. So we had one book, and then you had to take that book and connect it to something that you enjoyed or you wanted to talk about. For me, this is going to sound a little crazy, but that semester I focused on the subject of school shootings. That is something that is very important to me, being that I want to be a teacher, and that is a huge problem. And getting that support and getting that direction on how to do those papers, because my paper was quite different than the rest of the class. So allowing us to branch off like that and be our own makes me more intact to what I'm learning. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and it sounds like, and the question in the chat was also talking about, were you in a group session? You addressed that. And then it also sounds like from what you're answering is that when instructors can give you some type of choice, when that's available in an assignment, that really helps you make that learning more personalized, helps you really connect to that learning. And to kind of bring it back to this too, one of the things that is important from that survey, we had talked about how whiteboard in Zoom, for instance, was used, and there were images that were created, drawings, things like that to help you learn. Matthew pointed that out, even in the student hour sessions, being able to have some drawings, things like that available. But another topic that came up that I did want to address was really about instructor availability and instructor flexibility. And I hear that flexibility in the student choice of assignment, if that's possible. But I also noticed a theme that they were talking about in those responses, that the instructor was available through a variety of ways. And maybe you can talk to us about your instructor availability. So for instance, through email or through Google Voice or within D2L, that there were ways to be able to contact your instructor. And then the instructor was timely in their response too. Can you speak to that, your experiences with that?
I think thus far, the availability of the instructors that I've encountered, and especially on my last semester, where I had some really critical personal issues going on, they were more than flexible. They were more than accommodating. They were makes me scared. They were very helpful. By email, by phone, by text, by popping in the office, they just was available. There was not, even if you wanted to sign up, the meet, if you want to have a meeting with an instructor, It really was an open door policy through the instructors that I had. And I believe thus far this semester, it seems to be the established fact that the instructors are available. And it made even now a new semester, and you would think that, we know life happens and, things come up, but life has been happening for me continuously. So yes, they are available. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Matthew, did you have something you wanted to add to it also?
Yeah, just it's always nice when you can email your teachers or show up to the student hours and you always feel welcome. Like you never feel like you're bugging your professor. Like they want you to be there. It's a very pleasant feeling, and it's great. The availability of both like in person and like Zoom office hours, and the fact that the Zoom is just like open. You don't have to. A lot of professors, it's not like you have to email them. You just show up to the Zoom, and then they're there for you. And it's really great to know that, like, if you need help, you can just look at, see when the time is and just show up and get help just like that. Or a lot of professors also offer, if their student hours, if you can't make it there, they're very flexible in their schedules. So you can ask and set up a meeting whenever is available.
Can I say something, Laura? First of all, Kendra, thank you so much, because I got emotional as you were speaking, and it made me reflect on what I said to my students. I basically said to them, I will not let you disappear. And I had a student email me and say, I've never had no one say that, and I really appreciate you, but I want to say, like, I won't let you disappear, but you have a responsibility too. And if I want it more than you, then we have a problem. Right. And I always say, if we both want it, this is where we're going, right? And that, put that little bar there, that's an A. But if I want it and you don't, it's not going to work out well. And I think that students have to be honest about that, because we are held to an accountability, but I also say, so are you. And the class is not my class, it's our class. So for it to flow, you all have to come ready and be able to participate. So I'm not lecturing at you. And so I say that, I appreciate what Alexis said about the tabs, but that's a more personable conversation. I say that day one, listen, the expectation is you should be reading before you come to the Zoom, because then it's not me lecturing, we're having a discussion. So I really appreciate what all three of you are saying. And I will say this as a professor that has student hours, yeah, that's 24/7. Like, student hours don't really exist. It's like whenever the students email me, I'm responding. 2 a.m, if I'm up, they're getting a response. So, I really appreciate what you guys are saying. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate that, because it helps. It helps.
Thank you, Lisa. And I did see Alexis's eyes when you said 2
you
in the
were laughing
morning.
at me. I'm
She
like,
said, whoa.
2 in the morning. I tutor students during my free time. There is in no way, shape, or form I'm getting up at 2 in the morning. So you have some dedication there.
Well, let me say, Alexis, I'm not getting up. If I'm up and I'm on my computer, I'm responding. And sometimes I do that. So, but I'm not getting out of my bed now. So thank you guys.
But I did want to say something about the availability. For those of you who don't know me, I am actually physically disabled. So as horrible as the situation is on why we had to become virtual, I do worship Zoom. I really do. Because being in a wheelchair, going to class, then getting to somebody else's office hours, running here, running there, going here, it's a lot. It's a lot. So getting up from bed, coming over to my kitchen, turning on the computer. Hi, how you doing? It's great. I love it. Another thing I do want to mention, because this is something that I have experienced time and time again, that I think is very important, is as a disabled student, I will be open about this. I am an ADA, but being a disabled student, I do get accommodations. So I do work with the ADA counselor throughout the semester. And one thing that I have found is that meeting with the instructor before class even starts. So once I know who's teaching, once I get all of that, I will open up my email and I will say, hi, I'm Alexis. I'm in this class at this time, at this day. I'm an ADA student. I'd like to meet with you on Zoom. So we have a clear expectation of what you expect from myself and what I expect from you. So that way they know my face, that we know each other's expectations. And that sets the ground for a successful semester. And let me tell you, ever since I started doing that, my grades have just gone up. Like, not that they were bad in the first place, but I've done well, more than I thought I would ever be able to do. So for teachers, I think it's very important to allow yourself to be available for those ADA students, even before you start teaching, because that first connection before you start teaching may be the best thing that student gets.
Alexis, thank you so much for saying that and for pointing that out. And I'm imagining that if there's that ability to have that pre-course conversation, it's probably helpful for a lot of students. In particular, some students more than others, but it's probably a really helpful connection for a lot of people. That's excellent.
I think there was actually one more question in the chat. I didn't want anybody to feel ignored.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. And what we can do.
It was from me.
Yeah, Al, it was about the bug me question, right? Yeah. How do instructors know if they're going to bug you?
And how do we make sure that students are proactive like you guys are? Because you guys all have got a voice and are vocal. And we have got many students that are not as vocal. And boy, do we wish we had a class full of you, because that way we would actually, our job would be easier, because we would actually have people asking for the help. And one of the things that, Alexa, I love the fact that we don't want to be bugged, which I completely understand. But on the same side is, as an instructor, we don't want anybody to fall behind. And I know students are quiet. We ask questions and there's crickets. And we need more vocal crickets than the quiet crickets. So what can we do that can possibly help out with that?
I think you have to make sure you get every student involved. You have that role and you just go down, at least a question is directed at every student and they don't get away with not answering, and then from there you'll be able to determine, how maybe you might have to take another step with that student so that they know that you're there for them. But if you get everybody involved in the lesson, because some like me will probably talk too much, and there are others who won't, but the students who don't talk, they just want to be asked to the party. They just want to be asked to dance. They just want somebody to connect to. So I think just going down that road, and sometimes we don't want you to go down the road, but that gets everybody involved.
From my experience, not only being a student, but being on your guys' end as well, as working with students, one of the things that I've experienced is that students will be quiet because they feel as though their questions are dumb, or they feel as though their questions are ignored, or they don't really know how to ask questions. And that last one, not knowing how to ask questions, I will tell you, I have done that time and time and time again. I'm like, I'm not getting this, but I don't know why I'm not getting it. I don't even know the questions to ask to get it. And that's where, as a teacher, I appreciate when a teacher reinforces your strengths. So we may not be confident in certain things, but we're confident in other things. And you just have to reinforce those shy students that, you may not get this, but look at what you've done. Look how great you were in this unit. I mean, you helped Bobby, understand it because you understood it. Mm-hmm. And this is just your hurdle. And I've experienced that definitely helps and lets them be more involved because they know it's okay to not understand.
Did you have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, no, I really have to agree with both what Kendra and Alexa said, especially with Kendra, where you just literally go down the line and talk to everybody, because like I said, a lot of people won't really participate until they're like, invoked to, and that's what like if nobody has their cameras on, like just literally just asking for people to turn their cameras, you will get some response. Like even if you think that you're bugging them, but some people just don't do it until they're asked. It's not that it really bothers them that much. It's just that like it's easier just not to until
You're like, it's no rhyme or reason. It's just like they will get involved when they're asked to. Sometimes choices are not good for students because we'll choose not to.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I love the idea of that sometimes you won't dance unless somebody asks you to dance. And I, as a guy who stood along the wall my entire life, when I went to those little dances when I was in elementary school, I love the idea of this. And that is really great feedback. I appreciate so much you guys taking the extra time to answer my question. Thank you very much. This is wonderful. Thank you.
To back up that information, in the survey, there were some responses that talked about those introductory activities too, and the opportunities to get to know each other. Maybe we have to strategically, thoughtfully do those. And I can ask these three kind of off session if they have particular ideas for icebreakers that they've liked or group building activities that they've liked. But those probably play a big role in how comfortable students feel in sharing in the class too. And then other ways we can offer them opportunities to ask questions quietly, if that is what they need as well. We do have to bring it to a close today, though. As great as this conversation has been, I'm excited that we've been able to have this opportunity. I'm excited for future opportunities like this. I appreciate the students who participated and communicated with us about this. And I appreciate Matthew, Alexis, and Kendra for coming on here, being brave, coming up to be on the student panel, to face these questions and to share their experiences with us. And I just really want to thank them. And I want to thank all of the people who have come to this Lunch and Learn session today, because that's really great that you were so supportive of the student voices today too. And we can look forward to being able to connect in future ones. So we'll talk more about these communication efforts and maybe some tools that can help you do that. And we'll dive into that. We'll talk more about ways that one of the things that came up in the survey too were students appreciating resources that their instructors help them find. So we can talk about things like that as well.
Alexis, I find you exceptional. I don't find you different. I find you exceptional and encouraging.
Thank you. It's good to hear that, because sometimes you can feel a little different, which again, I keep talking about confidence, is not very good when it comes to confidence boosting, is being too different.
Different is always good. Don't you let nobody tell you different. Different is always good.
Well, thank you everybody also. And I will show you one thing real quick. These are the upcoming CCIT events that we have. February 11th, there's a coffee talk about ThingLink. ThingLink is an interactive opportunity you can work on with images, and this is going to focus on the Teach Champions. So these are examples that instructors have used in their courses that can inspire you to be able to use it in yours. There'll be a Tall TV on February 15th, and that one's going to focus on active learning. Those are really good discussion opportunities so that instructors can really talk about opportunities for active learning. We'll have another Lunch and Learn on February 16th. I kind of had put a tentative topic in there, effective communication with students. I think that has been reinforced in this session. So we'll go ahead and we'll explore ways that instructors can do that. And then February 25th is a coffee talk that will focus on YouTube videos. So those are some upcoming activities in CCIT. But I'd like to thank Matthew, Alexis, and Kendra one more time because they were really wonderful to come today. We appreciate them so much.